and definitely
Like the video.
okay. This might be a little longer, but I'm in it to win it. And considering I had a few, I thought I'd go on a little list run, and this will be one of those. Today we're upgrading the Konoha 12. Well, technically 10, and I'll explain that in a moment, but what I'm doing here is pretty simple. I'm just going to analyze everyone's loadout and base and see how we can take that to the next level. So I'll be taking into account the jutsu, chakra levels, chakra control, battle prowess, stuff like that. And I'll try to stick as closely to the same premise each character started off with, and we'll see if we can get them a little closer to in-game Team 7. And speaking of which, the reason I said 10 earlier is because I'm adding in Sai, and I won't be upgrading our resident demigods. I'll actually be doing sort of the opposite with them and trying to bring them closer to just regular high-tier Jonin. And I know that seems a bit weird, but I thought it'd be a good contrast to the others since they are basically already the most OP in the verse. So with all the explanation out of the way, I think we'll start with one of the most underrated in the group, Choji. See, it was a lot harder than expected to come up with something even half as cool and creative as Butterfly Mode, considering how to the point calorie conversion is. And just real quick, in case you were unaware, Choji is able to convert calories directly into chakra, which is way more overpowered than you might think. And that's why I propose giving Choji complete body manipulation. And I know I just jumped a whole flight, so let me go back a few steps. Choji's ability is to convert calories to chakra, which he already uses to manipulate his body size. But with that, I think we can up the ante a little bit. Now, because Choji has pretty decent chakra control, but nothing insane, I would say he probably won't be creating intricate shapes and structures. But the simple stuff would be easy enough. Like, instead of getting big, what if Choji could also become a wall, or think even smaller? Now in a stealth situation, Choji can make ladders, extend his arms, all without getting huge and attracting attention. And that would be really valuable considering the only other person on his team that could possibly do that is Shikamaru. And would you look at that, smooth segue accomplished. So for Shikamaru's Shadow Possession, and listen, if I'm honest, I thought of one for Shikamaru and then I thought of a way better one. Because at first I was stuck on two words, and it's a bit young, but Shadow Bullets. It just sounds cool as hell. But then I thought about it, and justifying that would be pretty hard since while he does have the chakra control, he does not have the chakra pool to make something like that efficient. So at best, I could see him letting off one, maybe two shots, and even then, it's not like they'd have the power to be worth it in bigger, more dangerous fights with stronger opponents. But I kept thinking on it a little bit, and I finally came up with this. Shadow Realm. And this is actually just as hard to justify as Shadow Bullets simply because of Shikamaru's almost famously small chakra pool. Like, even if nobody had ever said it, I don't think anyone who's seen Naruto would say, oh yeah, Shikamaru has lots of chakra, it's just not happening. But he does have two things even beyond his IQ that I think are very overlooked, and that's his chakra control and the substance that he uses. First, I don't think Shikamaru's chakra control is talked about enough. Like, is it adult Sakura level? No, of course not, but he's still up there on that list simply because of the precision and the speed of his jutsu. And it's not even that fast, but molding shadows isn't an easy thing, and that leads us to the substance, because I want to remind everyone that Shikamaru doesn't have to create shadows, and that's big because it means all Shikamaru has to do is connect his chakra somehow, and boom, anybody linked instantly falls into their own shadow. And just for shits, let's say Shikamaru had even just a decent chakra pool. Can I get a shadow burial on the board? That would be absolutely nuts. And don't even get me started on how in most fights in Naruto, they took place in a forest overcast with trees, and that would be therefore a damn near falling floor arena. And this isn't a crazy buff, because he could basically do the same thing with a normal shadow possession, I think. But since we did Shikamaru and Choji, let's finish out Team 10, which, by the way, I did individual squad analysis videos for each team except Team 7 a while back, so check that out. And if you're interested, I'll even do a Team 7 if you hit that like button or whatever. But back to Ino, who I was dead set on giving a taijutsu focus just because she's so hands-off when it comes to combat. And first thought that came to mind was a passive mind reading ability that would allow Ino to predict movements. But even if she could, her speed is almost non-existent, which means even if she could predict movements, she wouldn't be fast enough to keep up, nor is she strong enough to stop most incoming attacks. So that's a bust. But then I started harping on the speed thing because it dawned on me that Ino isn't a mover. When it comes to fighting, she's pretty stationary, and I found it all but impossible to give her a buff to strength because her kid is just very special ops. She was specifically made to not be on the front lines, but I'm an idiot and I need to force things in where they don't belong, so time bubble. And you might be squinting at your screen and thinking you missed something. How'd you get there, you're wondering? And I'll email you the directions. See, Ino's setup is built to support, which means she's prone to low health and area of effect type moves combined with a tight focus on the mind, which means I'm in a pretty narrow hall here. I can only deviate from one of those, not both. Otherwise, I run the risk of changing the way Ino's jutsu works in general, and I can't do that. I could try to go the opposite of the AoE and give her straight up legitimate mind control that would allow her to control an opponent without leaving her body, but that seems unnecessary, especially when she already has mind destruction jutsu, which would do the same thing, she just wouldn't have complete control over the person. I could forego the tight focus on the mind and just have her throw up barriers around her that for whatever reasons people can't pass, but that's sort of vague and aimless. Plus, it still takes Ino away from the combat, so how about I lean into both, and that's how I got Time Bubble. In this bubble around Ino, she can manipulate how people perceive time, which would now give her the speed she lacked before, and since Ino's no powerhouse, it's not like she can now easily kill an opponent with just even decent endurance. But she can definitely thin the herd and create openings that not only her teammates but she herself can now capitalize on. And I am taking into account squad members just because that's what most of these characters were built around in the first place. And since I already started doing teams, let's keep with that and go in descending order to Team 8. And I'll start with the most boring here. Of course, it's Kiba. Look, I get that Kiba's whole thing is dogs, but I think that he would not only be more useful, but a lot less of a dumb concept if he would just add more animals in there. A bird here, a lizard there. That's his best bet. But if you really, for sure, no debate, have to stick with the dog theme, can we get a beast mode that actually fights like a beast and not just spinning tackles that top out at 2 or just bigger 1? I mean, add some clones in there. Make it a storm for God's sake. Like, what is up with Kiba, man? Everything he does is ass. Even the two-headed wolf lost the small amount of cool it had when it started spinning. It's so bad, I'll even go a step further and propose that Kiba should have gotten the food pill mode that he used against Naruto without the food pill. That should have just been his base default ultimate. And I know we already had an Amaterasu coming, but I would have been okay with Kiba having a fire dog. Anything is better than what we got. So I'm just gonna head to Shino, because Shino's probably the shortest on here, and that's because spiders. Or hell, I would accept Shino being able to take on aspects of any bug he collected, like wings, jumping legs, hard skin, stuff like that. Easy money. And getting to the last member of Team 8, you might have realized that 2 of the konoha 12 have pretty much the exact same situation going on. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go 2 different ways for this. And with Hinata, I want to give her a little bit more in the way of fighting power. So this will probably be the more outlandish of the 2, but I want to focus on Hinata's Byakugan. See, I think Hinata could be the next copy ninja. Man, I'm really running the line here today. Okay, well, let me explain. I think if Hinata used her Byakugan to see when someone was building up chakra, molding it for a jutsu, and what chakra points, for lack of a better phrase, light up when doing this jutsu, Hinata, maybe not in the moment, but by replicating that in her own body, could probably pull off some of the same type of jutsu, depending on what nature she has access to, I guess. But I still think her having access to more than just Gentle Fist would be a benefit, just based off of the filler where she creates a water Senbon as product of her 8 trigrams protection technique. But yeah, that's Team 8. So next would be Team 7, but I'm going to save them for last, so let's skip to Team 3 and start with Lee, who only utilizes taijutsu on an already physical heavy team. So I wanted to give Lee a little bit more of a support option, and after staring at a wall for like 45 minutes, I think I got something. It's becoming more common knowledge, but in case you hadn't heard it, Lee can use chakra, he just can't mold chakra to do jutsu, which is how he can walk on water and cling to walls. And that means Lee can at least output raw chakra, which means we can use that. Now, how we use that all depends on how much chakra we think Lee has. And instinct says lower than would be normal, so I'll go with that. And going that route, I figure we'll still be relying on at least a few of his physical stats. And because Lee can't mold chakra, his chakra control is basically zero. But because he can walk on water and cling to surfaces, he can at least coat his hands and feet in chakra. And assuming he can effectively turn it on and off, Lee basically has his own form of glide. If he can output enough chakra to mitigate friction, again, assuming that's even how chakra would work, which we haven't seen anything to say it can't, so I'm going to keep with that. And in keeping with that, Lee also now can deflect or redirect moderately weak jutsu, which by itself isn't all that transformative, but with Lee's speed, strength, and just his reaction time, this becomes a solid option for Lee if he were to try to go the chakra route. And on that same note, Neji is pretty in the fray as a taijutsu user too, but unlike Hinata, I won't be focusing on giving Neji battle power or honing his Byakugan. Actually, what I'm proposing, I'm pretty sure both Hinata and Neji can actually do anyway, we just never see it, and that's buff both themselves and allies by optimizing the flow of chakra using the combination of the Byakugan and the Gentle Fist. This is actually something I immediately thought of when it came to Neji, so I'm sure others have as well, which is why it was an easy pick. And combined with Lee's glide, you might have a real problem. But last in Team 3 is Tenten, and Tenten is very much like Lee in that her focus is so much on physical that it's hard to even gauge what her chakra control or pool would be. And I don't really want to take away the weapons because that's kind of her core. So with that said, I don't want to just say add chakra to the weapons. But I will lean the other way and say put weapons on the chakra. Yeah, I think Tenten should have a chakra staff. And I know that sounds a bit far-fetched, but genuinely, I think the amount of chakra Tenten spends summoning scrolls would be better used maintaining and manipulating a staff made of her own chakra. And the energy and focus she expends on multiple weapons put into just one would legitimately be scary. And that's not even counting special effects the staff could have, like disrupting or even stealing an opponent's chakra. And definitely let me know what you think of these, or if you have a different vision in the comments, because if you watch the channel, you know these and the comparison videos are some of my favorites to make. But now we got Team 7. And remember I added Sai to this, but since he's the only one on Team 7 who needs a buff, he's up first. Sai probably has the most unique style of fighting out of this entire roster. Art coming to life is OP, but only if you use it that way. Cause Sai tends to stick to his Super Beast scroll, which while still versatile as hell, is just animals. But if we took it a step further and just gave Sai the ability to draw whatever, like imagine Sai being surrounded in a room, he squiggles some waves on a scroll and boom, the room starts flooding. And now that's me giving him a huge chakra boost because I don't think Sai has enough chakra to do all that. But an ink shield here, an ink flame there, and I think we can call it a day on Sai because you get the point. So now we're on to the original Team 7 and the 3 people on this list that absolutely do not need buffs. However, I'm not just going to nerf them and do a touchdown dance. I'm going to revert them to OG base and build them back up from there. Starting with Sakura, who I'm going to keep on somewhat the same path, but a little darker, because I would have Sakura still learn normal medical ninjutsu, but I would also have her learn stuff like being able to send an opponent's adrenaline into overdrive, or completely stop the body's self-healing temporarily so hits are more effective, or even mess with the nervous system so hits hurt more or less if she uses it on herself. And judging by the light novels and subsequent info on Sakura, she too probably can do all of that anyway. So on to Sasuke, who's a little harder. See, I can't change Sasuke's future abilities dealing with the Sharingan because they're innate, meaning he would have gotten those exact abilities no matter what as long as his Sharingan continued to evolve the normal way and he got Itachi's eyes. Which means his abilities were already set in stone. So with that in mind, I think we should just lean Sasuke more into stealth because when looking at all his fights, Sasuke is a head-on type of opponent. He's always going to be in plain sight, and he's rarely ever going to attack from behind. But I really feel like Sasuke's kit could take it there with a few deception checks and some secrecy. Like, imagine instead of being purely for attacking, Amaterasu could be used as a long-lasting smokescreen, or Sasuke could just replace himself with a clone inside Susanoo, and I won't even go into Rinnegan territory because that's already just over the top. So last up is our boy Naruto, and I'll keep this one short because I think at the end of the day, Naruto probably did the most with what he had out of all the others. And truth be told, it's harder than you expect to nerf him without removing Kurama because the Nine Tails can boost anything Naruto does to legendary levels. So I'm just gonna let him live till right up before KCM, and if that's the cutoff, he still has Rasengan, Rasen Shuriken, Sage Mode, and his Nine Tails cloak transformations. So Really, the only thing I can think to give him that isn't completely overpowered is a sort of chakra burst force pushback that he can do on command. So it's not like an unconscious situation. But even then, with that amount of chakra, Naruto can still finish most fights instantly. Honestly, he could probably level an entire city's worth of people and not even have halved his tank. So I think I'm just gonna stop it there because that's all I got. What'd you think of these upgrades and how would you go about it? Let me know down in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe. If you ever want to support a bit more, there's a thanks and a join button. Either is fine, and every bit clamps my clamps. So I hope you enjoyed this video because I appreciate you watching. Until next time, peace.
That thunder on me clap, make a nigga think before he act. Have a nigga dying on his back, then we double back. Shooters leaving rubber where you at. That's why niggas never wanna match.